Hello out there. Welcome to the No Shit Cast. I'm your host, Matt Frazier. Welcome to the Darth Vader masked edition of the No Shit Cast. The holy fuck, the numbers are spiking. And
we're in it for the long haul.
We're in it for the long haul here. So thanks for joining us on our journey into the Internet College of Infinite Knowledge. My co-host for this evening's festivities, none other than the Grey Wizard of Historical Knowledge himself, Mr. Eric D. Smith. How are you tonight, Mr. Smith?
I'm doing really well. Really well. So well, I could probably do this again or not do it again. I'm doing fine, man.
Nah, I just had to get rid of something I had in the mixer earlier. It just dawned on me. I was like, that's making noise I don't like. I'm going to get rid of that. So you have started a journey here of what? Intermittent fasting and working out every day and
yeah,
sort of some lifestyle changes, right?
Yeah, I finally bit the bullet and did some of that stuff there.
I like how you're wearing the sunglasses, by the way, so it makes you look like you're a rock star.
Or an extra from Star Wars or something.
Well, yeah, getting ready to summit Everest or some shit here, too. I don't know.
Yeah, these are mountain climbing glasses. So.
Yeah, they got the things on the sides.
Yeah, and the top and bottom of the polarized lenses.
So anyway, yeah, you've decided to sort of start getting into doing some lifestyle changes based on exercise and stuff like that. And you've been doing it for a while, right?
I've been. This is my second week and fourth day of walking. And this week I've been walking about 2 miles every day at a brisk pace, with no rest or anything, and that's been really good.
Yeah.
It's like the first day of this week. I'd walked all last week, but not quite as much. The first day of this week, I could barely walk a mile, and I was done.
Yeah.
And now I'm walking 2.2 miles and barely getting a sweat broken and puffing or anything. So I'll probably be trying to increase my speed as the weeks go by. And fasting since Monday, stopping, only eating between 8 and 4. I have been drinking some alcohol after 4, which you just told me is still caloric intake and screwing me up.
Yeah, it will. It'll mess it up. But
yeah, so what I've been doing this week instead of fasting is trying it out.
Sort of feeling it out, right?
Feeling it out, seeing how that's going to be, just a little bit of alcohol. But I suppose
kicking the tires,
starting Monday, I'll go the full blow, and after 4, I'll just, because all I'm doing after 4 now is drinking some absinthe and maybe a beer here and there.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too much different for you.
No, not in terms of how I feel in terms of hunger, I don't think.
No.
And I really haven't been that hungry, which is amazing. I constantly think about getting food. Like when I go home, I feel like I should eat something at least once. Or if I'm playing a video game, I'm like, I should eat something while I'm doing this. Or like if I get an extra, bit of money, I'm like, I should go get something to eat,
right.
And I don't need to. I mean, clearly from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today,
right.
I haven't had to eat after 4 at all. I've been eating a couple of meals a day, and that's it. I'm cutting my food budget in half.
Oh, you'll save a boatload of money.
And man, it's crazy.
Yeah, you feel, and it takes about, I don't know,
a
month for really to kick in. And I've gotten to the point now where I can go on and off of it. Like sometimes, I'll go off of it for a couple days, but then you can just switch it back on, and then the weight just falls off of you again, like almost instantly. It's really, really handy. It's a trick, it feels like, but it's super, super simple. So I've been on the road a lot here recently, right? And especially when I'm on the road, I do it because it just helps, because I'm on a project, I'm on a startup. And if I don't take that lunch, a lot of times I can just keep cranking through things.
Sure.
And it makes me more efficient on the job. So when I'm out working these jobs, I start shedding pounds again real quick, like just really, really slimming down. So
I'm only eating while I'm at work. By the time I'm off work, I can't do it anymore.
Now you're good, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's good to hear, man. So the idea here is possibly getting into some murder yoga. You had mentioned maybe.
Yeah, I mean, like if I keep going and can hack just walking around, then I might go and do some really slow beginner class stuff, But like I got to build up to that because I mean even level 1 is
it's insane.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're going to suffer at level 1. Probably more than any other level, I would imagine.
No shit. I'm trying to think if there's anything. I heard something today. So is mashed potatoes really just Irish guacamole?
Yeah.
I think that qualifies, right? It's just like
well, yeah. I'd say so. It's just a different color.
Or why don't we call guacamole, like mashed guacamole
avocados.
or mashed avocado?
I don't know. Why? I don't know. Why don't we have pickled cucumbers and just pickles?
Thought that was kind of an interesting postulation, if you will.
I agree. Yeah.
So I had been talking to Daryl Montgomery Hell.
Yeah. And
I think I've got some stuff figured out here now on the new studio PC where I can do a Skype call, record it there, which means it doesn't tie up some of our other resources like the way we were doing them when you were remote for a while on the show. So I'd like to get him back, get him on the show and have him come on because he's just a super interesting guy anyway. But obviously, given some of the stuff he's an activist with and things like that, I think he might be able to have a conversation that would be relatively prudent given the circumstances.
Given the times.
Yeah, kind of thing. So,
well, not so much the times, but the things that's being drawn to attention and forefront now.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, big time.
And I don't want to give the impression that this just happened in the last few months or something.
Right,
No.
No, it's very real, very live right now kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So that might be coming up. But other than that, man, I don't have a whole hell of a lot of pre-show stuff. You got anything else you want to wrap about?
I don't think so. Nope, I don't think so.
I got some cool articles lined up for us tonight.
That sounds good.
So let's cut to this first one that comes from boingboing.net. I like that. Boing Boing. Well, who came up with that? Someone probably got paid a bunch of money to come up with that name. iPhone shortcut to record encounters with the police.
Okay.
After you install an iPhone shortcut called Pulled Over by Police, all you have to say is, Siri, I am being pulled over, and the shortcut will record the encounter.
Apple doesn't trust the police either.
I guess nobody does.
Well, remember
right now,
when they weren't allowing the government to open up their phone that one time not too long ago?
Yeah. They still haven't. I think the FBI or whatever figured it out on their own, but I'm pretty certain that Apple has pretty much drawn that line where they're staying on that side of the fence.
And good for them.
Yeah. I mean, at least we know we can trust our dick pics and stuff with our iPhone. From CBS Sacramento, you give the command I'm being pulled over and the program pauses any music you were playing.
That's good.
Goes into do not disturb mode, dims the phone's brightness, and starts recording on the phone's front-facing camera. Further, once you stop the recording, it will send the video to a designated contact.
Wow, man. Good job.
That's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
That's an indication of the times.
In case you get killed in the middle of filming.
Right. Well, I mean, the funny thing is that obviously the connotation here is I'm being pulled over by the police, right? This is a law to record, I guess, your side of the story for law enforcement interactions.
Well, with a safety measure for it to get to someone else in case something happens to you and you can't.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing that's the creepiest part about it is the acknowledgement that this is for this situation, and it's fairly likely that it would end up with you being either incarcerated in some way or hurt where you can't do anything.
Right.
So it sends that off. I mean, presumably if it's on your phone and you got incarcerated, they'd give it back to you and you could still upload it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But either they're implying that it might somehow get lost or damaged or erased, or that you might not be alive to do it.
To do it anyway, right? So it's sort of an automatic thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I said. It's kind of an interesting result, I think, of the times that we live in, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It's certainly a marker of the times that we live in.
It's a strange days indeed, dude. Now, do you get the sense? I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't talk about this, but do you get the sense that this is the end of something or the beginning of something new, or like I'm talking about?
Well, isn't that the same thing in any sense?
Anyways, right?
Yeah, I mean the beginning of anything is almost always the end of something else.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I would say yes. I don't know. It really just depends on how things go. This is like a really crucial time, and to see what people's willing to do.
Right.
And it makes it hard because of the pandemic. A lot of things that would normally be in place or in action for this sort of thing may not be able to be sustainable with the virus being around.
Right,
like protests and gatherings and various things. May only last so long if things get truly bad with the virus.
I was kind of going at that today. Was that, I just saw the article come out. I don't have it on the show, obviously, but that we broke another record today and this is so we unlocked. The cases are spiking, the ICUs are overflowing, and the economy's tanking anyways.
Yeah, I think the economy was the very first indication that things might not go the way they planned.
Planned it to go, yeah. Well, there's no confidence.
No, and anywhere. And why would there be? Everybody's out in the street killing each other and burning everything down, and no leadership at all. And
Or you get this fucking crazy ass virus. You get to risk that too.
Well, yeah, just there in the background.
It's just all of this, and so, I mean, like, people aren't going out. I mean, it does look like there are some people going out in mass. Okay. But my point is there's a lot of people that normally would be going to the local retail stores or the local shops.
Yeah.
That are just ordering shit online now. Instead, so even though they've reopened, there's no confidence in going back to these establishments, and they're suffering regardless.
Yeah. Well, I think I've mentioned this before on here, but I live above a bar, and I guarantee you, all of those restaurant employees, all the ones down there at the local restaurants, I don't want to name restaurants or anything, but they all come down to the bars afterwards and congregate down there. I mean, so, you're going to have to wear a mask if you go in there, because those people are hitting the bar like pretty regularly.
Yeah.
It's been more busy through the weekday than it has been ever since I've lived there in 2 years. And I think that's the people coming from restaurants that have different days off, the younger crowd.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely zero social distancing down there. They're all in their little cliques and groups, and
I've got Facebook. And I've seen it, and it's like, so there's nothing surprising to me about the numbers skyrocketing again.
Yeah.
I mean, at all.
Yeah.
And then anyway, I could go on and on about this,
hopefully culling society to the point where there's a little less stupid people in the world, I suppose.
Well, I've made this argument before that the gene pool definitely does seem to need some chlorine in it,
Yeah, or some COVID.
It's got a little, or whatever you want to call it, right? It's got a little,
whatever it is that cleans out that stupid. hard to get that shit clean.
Right? Oh, my God. All right, so this one comes from thriveglobal.com. I don't know this source very well, but I think I did preen this from like Smart News or something like that, so I'm going to give it a shot.
Groovy.
Göbekli Tepe is rewriting our entire understanding of human history. Göbekli Tepe has made lots of people scratch their heads, even though it was uncovered during the 60s. And you say it means Potbelly Hill or something like that?
Yes.
In what, like
Turkish?
Turkish? Okay. Yeah. Its significant impact was just fully realized in 1994. The historical site is situated in the southeastern part of Turkey, approximately 12 kilometers northeast of the city of Sanliurfa, I guess. Despite this, it predates the country's establishment by a shitload. Anyway. We read all that.
Oh, it's weird when they do that.
Yeah.
That's why there was ... right? History of mankind, or no?
Archaeologists.
There it is. Established by a huge margin.
Yeah. This archaeological site has existed for so long that it rewrites people's understanding of not just the history of Turkey, but also the history of mankind. If we base facts on previous knowledge about how modern civilization started, then Göbekli Tepe must not be there. However, this place truly exists and has been around for almost 12,000 years.
Yay!
Well, we talk about this all the time. We're always talking about how Göbekli Tepe is like this weird thumbtack in the timeline that it shouldn't be there, right? It's like drags the timeline.
Yeah.
So I saw this pop up, so I figured this might be good to give people context that haven't listened to the show since episode 8, or whatever it was. So
yeah, so I think it was actually 3 and 4, man.
It was way back.
Yeah, 8 was Orko R.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was ancient trippy gods.
It was 3,
yeah.
and then the other one was like history of the world that never was. Or something like that.
Göbekli Tepe has become a tourist attraction for years now, but it's still under archaeological study. Turkey's current political issues have made things harder than usual. Despite this,
always,
the historical site has been a source of pride for locals, and some parts of the area are being restored. Göbekli Tepe, if all evidence is considered, is the oldest significant site that was made by human beings.
Yes.
This, in turn, has made the place one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in history.
Yes.
Now, we're looking at pictures here for those that are just listening, but if you're watching on YouTube, you get the full experience. But anyway, the one of the things that's really cool about the monument, or whatever you would call these stela or stela or whatever they are, they're T-shaped sort of stones that stand up pretty tall. But everything that's on these things is carved in relief, which means the animals that are carved on these pop out. So they made these the hardest way possible. They didn't just carve the animals into the stone.
Yeah,
that
they carved around
easy.
the animals.
They carved all of the stone away around the animals.
Look at that scorpion.
And I think that it has images of animals that are not considered to be indigenous to this area ever.
That's what they believe, yes. Yeah. And I know this probably next sentence is going to be a good sentence, or paragraph rather. But I think one of the main things for me is that the reason why history would need to be rewritten is because the first civilizations was either Egypt or the Sumerians in that area in the Fertile Crescent, which this was a part of. But that was like when the first civilization was supposed to be blooming, the first congregation of people and things like that.
Okay.
But this kind of sets the clock back, showing you that maybe the first congregations of people were around these kinds of religious structures and not the new cities that were being built after this. So maybe those cities were a product of the benefits that happened from the congregation of the people around these type of things.
Okay.
Like they realized that they could band together and accomplish greater tasks, and maybe that was the genesis of the idea of having a city, which of course led to social stratification and specialization and all that.
That brings to mind this concept of the survival of the fittest. I've heard people throw that saying around constantly, right?
Yeah, Druids.
And and this harkens that actually humanity thrived when it learned collectivism.
Sure, absolutely.
When it learned to pool its resources together and
use those resources, the land and the animals, and
that's when societies explode and grow. Not when everybody's running around.
And when languages are developed and alphabets are developed and writing is developed, and the stelae that you'd mentioned that's not what those are. Those are like pillars or like key-shaped pillows. Yeah, monoliths.
Yeah.
But they wrote on steles.
Yeah.
They were basically
like
clay tablets. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I always get that kind of... I'm not an archaeologist, man, or a history major. But I love this shit. Okay, almost 12,000 years old and abandoned for 9,000 years. The archaeological site of Göbekli Tepe is a head-scratcher due to a lot of reasons. The excessive ancientness of this place has made it all the way much weirder.
That's a weird sentence. All the way much weirder.
The time of construction of Göbekli Tepe is traced as far back as 12,000 years. This is a time period that is already pre-civilization.
So see, there's the thing right there, right? For it to be pre-civilized, you're saying there's no cities anywhere in the world, there's no writing, there's no systems really that are huge.
Okay.
Like once cities started being made in Samaria, one of the things that we find a lot of is these little cups, these bowls,
Right.
And we've found thousands of them. They're all the same shape and size, right? Like mass produced. Things like that wasn't, and none of that kind of idea and stuff was around, except possibly in these places because it's pre-civilization.
Right.
But anyway,
But aren't we really assuming something if we're saying that this is an exception and obviously required civilization to pull it off?
well, I don't know, but I don't think it required civilization to pull it off because it happened before civilization
'Cause I've
in
been to
that sense.
I've been to Coral Castle down near Homestead, Florida, or in Homestead, Florida, and according to, I don't know, the legend of that place, that was all built by one dude.
Well, yeah, but the thing that makes it suspicious is that there was modern technology around the time, even though no one's seen him using that.
Oh, like a steam shovel, or
yeah,
like
yeah. But we
backhoes
can
and-
be assured that back here,
it did not exist.
no,
Well,
no.
yeah.
And of course,
Mostly assured.
so many people had to congregate to achieve these things. We've never seen a site that was done just by one person. There's always evidence that there were many people at these sites. So that's another thing that throws into question what you were talking about, the fact that one guy did it.
Right.
Like, that's never really happened before, and it only happened in modern times when there could have been some trick. And that's what the mystery is, right? No one's really seen what was being done. Although, I think we talked about it early on in one of the shows where we looked up on YouTube where there was a guy that had a technique of moving monolithic structures with just like a
Like a lever.
yeah.
Yeah. He would stack things up and then move big buckets of water and it would tip, and then he would put another board under it and then move a bunch of buckets of water and it would tip. So he would use the center point to cantilever things up into the air. And he took like huge concrete blocks and lifted them, with these, building like a scaffolding under it, if you will, as he went, could lift a slab of concrete like 20, 30 feet up in the air. And then made like Stonehenge like pillars that way. And he did it all by hand with just buckets of water and forms and concrete, and like he didn't use any kind of backhoe or whatever to pull it off.
That anybody knows about.
No, this guy filmed the whole thing.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. This guy.
He did it. He did it completely with all manpower.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
I think the only thing that I think he dug the holes. He could have shoveled it. He was like, yeah, but for the sake of expediency, look, I'm going to use a backhoe to dig the dirt out here. And with the way that they stood those stones up, it was wild. Like they put them, they were sort of laid down into the hole, and then he used a hose to spray away dirt, and the whole thing just would go thunk and stand straight up.
They had that on Nova too. Basically, when you got to about 45 degrees, these other people would take over these ropes,
and they would let it, just put it right where they wanted it.
Except they were digging out sand in Egypt when they were doing it on the Nova documentary.
Okay.
But it's the same concept.
Same principle.
They dug a hole. They laid it on its side. They dug out underneath of it until they could make it fall in.
Right.
And then once they got so much, they pulled it up and then put sand in around it to straighten it.
Yeah, and it just stood up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so the archaeologists' study on Göbekli Tepe is a continuing process due to the complex revelations that the site presents. Structures that compose the site are incredibly well preserved, and this has allowed archaeologists to study them similarly as based on their original state. Turkey's climate has helped in Göbekli Tepe's remarkable preservation. However, one startling factor of its preservation is the way that the temple sites seem to have been backfilled. The backfilling of the place before being abandoned is still a mystery. The backfill protected the structures from different elements, and this helped preserve the state of Göbekli Tepe. Who would have known that people of today would still be able to discover this archaeological site?
So that's the thing, I think, one of the main things that is interesting to me and appealing to me about the situation is that at some point in time, whatever this was, whatever it meant to the people, whatever they were doing, whatever they were worshiping, at some point they decided to fill the temple in and bury it and abandon it.
like maybe to hide it, or because they fell out of faith with it.
That's the thing. That's what's so interesting, right? Like
Right.
the easy assumption is, like you said, to hide it. Like that maybe there was an invasion on the way and it was holy to them, so they wanted to hide it, much like the Jewish people did with the Ark in the first sack of Jerusalem. Or in the second, right?
Like Nebuchadnezzar or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, maybe that's why they did it. But if it wasn't for that reason, then your brain really starts going wild about, well, why would you do it? And of course, when we talk about this stuff too, we're like, oh my God, it's Göbekli Tepe, it's changing everything. It's like, yeah, but that's just the first one they found, right? They just stumbled upon this by accident. There was a farmer trying to remove a block, and it turned out to be a temple. So you know what I mean?
Happens all the time.
It
right?
does. It really does. Like the Nag Mahal Library was found when a camel that a tourist was riding
Step through a hole, right?
Or
Yeah.
like in the caves of Qumran when the boy was looking for fire chip starters,
Yep.
So, I mean, they find this stuff just randomly every so often. There could be other temples. If there were other temples, maybe they're filling a temple in because there's some other phase or something
Now,
that they're doing.
It's kind of true, right? That sites are historical. So generally, when you find what you consider to be a religious temple somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
it's probably on top of another religious temple, because the
likely
sites
too.
seem to become sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And then conquering religions and societies will just sort of build temples
Yes.
on top of the last people's
Yeah.
temple kind of thing. So I've heard that there's shit under Göbekli Tepe.
I have not heard that,
That
but I
there's
wouldn't doubt that.
layers of these things.
Possibly so.
Maybe they'll say something about it here, but okay. So if you still haven't grasped how old Göbekli Tepe is, take Stonehenge for instance, and add 6,000 years more to it. This is how ancient the site of Göbekli Tepe is. Stonehenge is popular for showcasing prehistoric construction feats by humans. Take into consideration that there is an unearthed area older than Stonehenge by 6,000 years is already mind-boggling. Another basis for comparison in the era of Sumer. This is where writing has been considered to be invented. Göbekli Tepe is also older with a margin of 6,000 years.
So see what I'm saying? If our history books and the going idea is that writing and civilization and cooperation all formed in Sumer, right? This was 3,000 years ago. Going, did they do this without writing? Did they do this without language? I mean, they surely had to have some way of communicating how many people could work on a large scale project, right?
And move supplies and have things show up on time.
All the logistics of it.
Because when you look at this, I mean, this is, there's stuff broken here, obviously, but I mean, there's some real coordination going on here of some sort. And all the wood shit that we see in the picture here, for those who are listening, there's a picture with that's all been added by the archaeologists.
So if they find writing in here, that'll blow their mind. They thought writing was invented 6,000 years after this. If they find writing here, it'll blow their mind. And the only thing that they know of that existed before writing was a token system that had been in place since Neolithic times, since about 4,000 years past Göbekli Tepe.
It was like a trade and barter type device then?
Yeah, little emblems and coin-like things with things drawn on them that had representation. And we still don't know what the value or representation of these things are, but we have found these things all across Europe, and there seemed to be some kind of a trade with them, but we don't know how they worked out the value or the meaning behind them.
Gotcha.
So we had the capacity to be doing that sort of thing, but it hadn't happened yet, but maybe it had, right? You find this and you see all of this that's indicative of having these things, which are culture, like the writing is culture, an alphabet is culture, a way of worshiping is culture, right? We didn't think any of that was really settling in until 6,000 years after that. But then you find this and you think, well, maybe we're wrong. Maybe that stuff was all in play and we just don't understand it or haven't found enough because it's so ancient.
Right. It's possible. I mean, well, okay, so
Graham Hancock.
right, no, right, and all, yeah. I put something. It was funny. I put something up of his the other day. Trying to think what it was. And so anyway, somebody was like, it was on the No Shit Cast. It was like, Graham Hancock. Psh, why don't you just start posting shit from Ancient Aliens or whatever?
That'd be Giorgio Tsoukalos or Eric Von Daniken.
Yeah, and then I can, I've heard a lot of the stuff that Graham Hancock has said and predicted and shit. And then you look at sites like Göbekli Tepe and you go, of all of those, he's the least crazy.
I agree. Totally agree. Out of Tsoukalos, Van Daniken.
Oh, I don't consider Graham Hancock to be in the same.
He used to be a little bit more like them, but when he started, I don't know what happened to him, but at some point he started doing DMT and psilocybin.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and he totally distanced himself from the weird shit and really started concentrating on the weird shit that we talk about with the proto religions and the drugs and all of this stuff.
Right.
So you're right. He is the least crazy or most crazy like us.
I mean, look, he made a lot of predictions and when he made them, he was heavily ridiculed. Okay.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden,
they find
they start finding this shit, and it's like, oh, well, maybe he was right.
And he's like, you want to buy my book?
Yeah. Yeah, really. Göbekli Tepe is not only astounding for its age, but also for its architectural style. Yeah, baby. Got some swag, baby. As seen on the details of the temples, the construction quality and craftsmanship in Göbekli Tepe are way ahead of its time. Another head scratcher is how could a construction like this even be able to stand for a long time if construction should not have even been possible at this time? Well, there's that. It's like finding a fucking airplane.
Yeah.
Like 1,000 years before the Wright brothers ever flew.
Yeah.
The architecture, engineering, and even project managing needed to accomplish this ancient site are truly mind-boggling if you analyze the state of human civilization during this period.
Or at least what we know of it.
Yeah, or what we think we know of it. Göbekli Tepe has impactfully forced archaeologists to restudy the true dawn of civilization.
And maybe buy a Graham Hancock book.
I suggest that anyway, yeah. Göbekli Tepe is a huge construction project, even for modern standards. The requirement for manpower would take hundreds just to be able to construct the huge temples. This also required a significant amount of time. The possibility of this construction is only feasible if there was an organized social structure in place. Up until this day, modern people might not understand fully the intelligence of the people behind Göbekli Tepe.
See, that's what I was saying, man. The implications is that to build it, you need these things that we only ever seen any evidence of 6,000 years later.
Right.
So either we're wrong about when those things started, which is weird because then imagine that they had everything to make cities but didn't for 6,000 years, or we're going to find some underground forgotten city that's fucking old.
Then all of a sudden, if the Sphinx is actually 10,000 years older.
Again, being sites built upon sites, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And was pointed at Sagittarius, whatever the fuck they say, because it doesn't align that way anymore because of
the stars and the precession of the planet.
Yeah. But if you rewind the clock to 10,000 years ago or whatever, it points directly at a constellation.
Sure.
The dog constellation or something like that, I think, right?
Sirius.
And then was a lion that was later carved down into the face of a pharaoh or whatever. But
yeah, because the legend is that.
Well, then what's his name? Robert Schoch from Boston University,
Schoch and Adam West, or not Adam West, but the last name's West, West.
That say that there's water erosion marks on the base of the Sphinx.
But that's been disproven because they say that there's salt in it, and it's the salt erosion from the wind that's making that, and it's not water erosion from 10,000 years ago. It's more recent erosion from wind. That's what I have heard as the counter argument.
I know that Robert Schoch vehemently disagrees with that as of recently.
Him and his long curly locks.
Yep.
He looks like a boy. Is it weird that I know all these people by name and what they look like?
They're interesting dudes.
They are.
Man. I mean,
and no, it was Anthony West. Anthony West and Robert Schoch were the two people that teamed up to figure that out or to imply that. Anthony West he had like a mustache and looked like he was from the 30s or something. But Robert Schock he had long curly hair and had a real boyish face.
And he's still a professor at Boston University.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because he's on a lot of the Ancient Aliens, but he really doesn't subscribe to any of that shit.
Not most of it, no.
He's, no, not any of it.
Well, I mean,
he just believes that the Sphinx is older and that there's water. That's his one thing.
Now, you know who Edgar Cayce is, right?
Yeah.
The Sleeping Prophet.
Yep.
Also the guy that made the game Pit.
Yes.
So, he famously predicted that there was structures underneath the Sphinx and the library. Yeah, and that knowledge in that library and that construction came from people from Mars that fled their planet because Mars's precession is crazy compared to ours. It turns all around and stuff. And they fled the planet and came here, and they were Egyptians or Atlanteans. Essentially, they were Atlanteans. This is like a Graham Hancock thing, too. They came here 10,500 years ago. Their symbol was the dragon, which is why you find symbology of dragons like all over the place, right? But that's really not the reason why. But that's what Graham Hancock was saying.
This is the theory you're talking about. You're not saying any of this is true. You're saying this is the theory.
In fact, I would refute this with other facts. But Hancock and Cayce, they all have this overarching idea that people came from Mars, where the Cydonia region is, and they came here and they started in the Alzors, they think, out in the middle of the ocean, and that they had colony cities of Carthage and Egypt and a few other places were like colonies of Atlantis. And when Atlantis sank, it left those cities there, and it's what gave them their high degree of technology in terms of astronomy and architecture.
Okay.
Right? But, and of course, tied into this is that the pyramids of the Giza Plateau are built to resemble Orion's belt.
Okay.
But that's not the reason why. I don't even remember what the first thing I was saying was that I would refute. But yeah, what was I talking about right before that?
They were Atlanteans and they came from Mars and dragons. Yeah.
I mean, because you think about that, right? And you know that the Chinese and their history, they have dragons. You know, the Europeans have dragons, But the reason why that is because all ancient people found dinosaur bones in the earth. Right? If you look at
great serpent, dinosaur is like giant serpent, or I think is literally what that means, isn't it?
Yeah, and
terrible lizard. Terrible lizard. That's it. Yeah, we looked this up once.
and the thing is, they were everywhere. They were on every continent because Pangea was a thing, right? And it broke up, so that's why they're on every continent. So every culture grew up with finding these bones. And just to give a case in point, take one culture, the Greeks. We have found ancient dinosaur bones in ancient Greek temples, inscribed with Greek mystical letters and words and stuff. Right?
Okay.
We have found where ancient Greek people have tried to
anthropomorphize.
Yeah, the bones that they found and build them into human-looking shapes, right?
That's where they came up with the
legend of the Cyclops,
because it was woolly mammoth
and
bones.
The griffin,
yeah,
right. So, and if you look at where the Greeks say that the battles of the gods happened between the Titans, the old gods, and the new Olympian deities,
let me guess, there's dinosaur bones everywhere. Right?
They're all dinosaur graveyards. So they ancient times, just like they would watch the sky and note things, they did the same thing on the ground. They knew where these bones were. They found these bones, and they would find these giant femurs bigger than me.
Right.
And that's why they said there was giants in the earth in those days, and that's why there's so many legends about giants, and that they were like predecessors that mankind or the gods superseded and destroyed. That's why you have these legends. So literally, dinosaurs are the reason why the ancient Greeks thought that there was a race of titans that was defeated by the Olympian gods, and this happened in every culture, and that's why there's the symbolism is in every culture.
And this isn't just a plausible explanation, right? Like, you can actually trace back documentation and everything to exact places and things and go, oh.
At least in the Greek world, you can. The research has been done there that most extensively, right? And there's only.
So that's what the Greeks were blaming it on.
Yeah.
And we know that to be kind of a fact.
Yes.
Like, this isn't speculation.
No. Yeah.
Historical fact.
Yes. There's a few books. There's a couple of books, really, that's wrote about this that you can go and get and read if you want to. But, yeah, and the same thing with the pyramids being built to look like the Belt of Orion, which I'm sure you've heard.
I absolutely have heard
But the reason why they're offset in that fashion is because the plateau that they're on, the Giza Plateau, is eroded away in that fashion. They didn't build them all at the same time. They didn't plan them all at the same time. So when it came time to make the other ones, and they had to find a place, they couldn't put them exactly in a line because there was no plateau there. So they had to back up a little bit and put it in there. And so it was the contour and shape of the land that forced them into making these things where they're at.
Again, the site was sacred.
Yes.
So they used it.
As much
as they could.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the, what's it called? The ones in Peru.
The Peruvian, like Machu Picchu.
And
the one that's near it with the big blocks.
Sacsayhuaman and like all of those, right? Isn't there one of those that's supposed to be lined up at the exact same dimensions?
But they're not exact at all if you actually look at the maps.
Right?
Yeah, so they're not exact.
This is wishful thinking on somebody's...
Not only is it wishful thinking, but in the history of the Peruvians, they themselves note that these temples are built on that spot because it was a sacred spot or a battle occurred on that spot, and they built it there because they won a battle or this thing happened. So in their own history, they've got the reasons why they put these things where they're at.
Right.
Again, just trying to use a sacred space or a monumental space where something monumentous happened.
Right.
In the best way they can. Like, for instance, as an example of this happening, even again with the Greek people, but the word trophy comes from a Greek word that's the way it's spelled. It looks like it's strophe, right? But what that meant to the Greeks was it was an altar. It was this portable altar called a strophe that when they would have their battles, it was hoplite battles. Like hoplites are these Greek people who didn't have a lot of training, but they had this heavy armor, heavy shield, and a spear, right? And because they were fighting over land, the idea was you were either trying to drive the other group off of a place, or as that group, you were trying to maintain that spot and not let these people drive you off, right?
Right.
So when they would clash and have their battles, there was always a point at when... if the people driving these people off got the upper hand, these people would let go of their shields and their spears because they were the heaviest things that they had, and they would book it out of the way. And that's how they would route, because these guys couldn't chase them because A, they had their armor and stuff, their shield and their spear, and B, the point was to try to occupy the area and claim this area to be used for growing food, right?
Okay.
So wherever the point was, where the tide of the battle turned, you could know where that was at because it was the spot where all these people dropped their shit and left. So they would go to that spot because that's the magic spot where it happened, where they got the upper hand, and they would open up this, like it was a little thing that they would open up, a little altar, and they would pledge to their deities because that's where it happened. The deities of war, they would pledge themselves to the deities of war because at that spot for that reason.
It was where they achieved victory, where the gods saw favor,
yes,
and gave them their breaking.
And that's why you get a trophy for winning on the field of battle.
That's funny. That's funny. I never knew that.
Yeah, but you can see why these things are important to be marked. Even the Peruvians,
unless you're from the Confederacy, then you get a trophy for losing.
Yeah, your participation trophy. It only lasts for so long before if someone's going to take that down.
Gets pissed and rips it down.
Right.
Göbekli Tepe is a huge construction project for even modern standards. The requirement for manpower would take hundreds just to be able to construct the huge temples. It's also required a significant amount of time. The possibility of this construction is only feasible if there was an organized social structure. Did I read this already?
No, I think we were
up until
talked
this
a lot about
day.
it.
Modern people might not fully. Go back. Oh, look, there's Joe Rogan. There's Graham
Oh
Hancock.
my God, it's Rogan. Oh, are
On
you
Rogan.
serious?
No, I'm dead serious.
Oh my God, of
Göbekli
course.
Tepe was already discovered, but it was kept ignored for almost 30 years. No one truly realized the significance of its existence until 1994. It was previously assessed as only a medieval graveyard. It was basically rediscovered back in 94, and traits of the site significantly made an impact on archaeologists ever since. A German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt led the charge of this rediscovery. Learn more about Klaus Schmidt here from Joe Rogan on and Graham Hancock. Graham, look, hi, Graham. I think it's 1284. So he was still tripping balls when he did that.
Yes, if he would just have some psilocybin, you would understand Göbekli Tepe.
But he doesn't. The last I heard, he doesn't even smoke pot or anything. Like he went completely. He quit doing all of that now.
I
The
didn't
last
hear
interview
that.
I saw with him, I think it was on Rogan. He said he was completely sober.
Yeah.
Like he was like, yeah, it kind of ran its course, kind of thing, and now he's on to being, I don't know, present. Is that the right way to say it? Archaeologists have considered Göbekli Tepe as a religious structure. This instantly makes it the oldest temple in the world. The age of its existence holds a large margin between the next oldest religious structure in the world. This place being a massive religious construction adds more mystique.
Now, see, and then the next thing here that you're going to read, that is something that I've always talked about too, is like one of the main interesting things about the megalithic structures is that they're megalithic, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to say build something like the Pyramid of Khufu, you know, and the Giza pyramids, the big one.
Yeah.
It's a big deal, right? It's aligned to the cardinal directions. It's really tall, all this, right? But the fact that they're doing it in 50-ton blocks as a minimum, like, where did that idea come
And
from?
why?
Yeah,
It's,
I mean,
makes
obviously
it
it's
so much harder
yeah,
to do.
and it's all, they're already talking about how many people it would take and how long it would take and the logistics being a big deal, right?
Right.
So on top of that, can you imagine if we were telling that to the, like maybe 700 people from our city of Lancaster, and then we're like, oh, and we're going to do it with 50-ton blocks.
Everybody's just like, just go. Yeah. Go ahead.
Like why would you do that?
Yeah.
And they don't. Then there's no one that knows, and they do it everywhere. Like everywhere, there's these big megalithic structures. It's not just one group of people. It's like somehow they all had the idea that building big was the way to go.
Yeah, no shit. At its center, there are huge pillars topped with massive stone blocks. The massive pillars weigh tens of tons. Estimates even range from 20 to 60 tons.
See, averaging 50-ton blocks, man.
So placing these blocks in a place is already a mind-boggling task. How would ancient humans replace these blocks perfectly? That is quite a daunting question. It would take intelligent ancient engineers to construct the whole place. And look at that. That's, I don't know, it's like a jaguar or something carved in relief
Yeah.
on this. So they started with the 60-ton block was actually 100 tons before they carved all the reliefs out of it first. You follow me?
Yeah,
So it's even more ridiculous than that.
And doesn't that show the amount of pre-planning that was done?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Hey,
more.
Okay, so a lot of stones in Göbekli Tepe have artistic value. The central pillars can be seen with decorations of elaborate drawings, mostly of animals. There are also intricate animal statues that were carved onto the surface of a pillar. This is the art that is way ahead of its time. Göbekli Tepe is still an ongoing archaeological study, but the findings of this mind-boggling site showcased a series of answers, but also a series of questions that challenge the dawn of civilization. Our old understanding of ancient architecture, engineering, and social structures are being questioned by this one. Significant archaeology mystery. Yeah. It is neat, though. I love it because they're always finding out new shit there, too.
Yeah.
But the last that I had understood, I wonder when this article came out. The last that not too long ago,
2020,
was that they had found multiple of those rings.
Three of them, that's what I heard.
And then a bunch of small ones that were buried all around the area, too.
And they recently found a huge, I think the largest megalithic structure, the remains of it, somewhere near Stonehenge, just recently, like in the last couple of days.
Latest thing I heard about Stonehenge was the ring of
The little stones that
goes out even further.
No, this is something
This
more
is like
recent.
grave sites. There's like a ring of grave sites
I
around
know
it.
what you're talking about. Yeah, this is more recent than that.
Wow. Yeah, it's not, and as our ability to measure shit gets better, we're just learning more and more about things. I love science, man. Okay, this one comes from New Atlas. A radical hydrogen boron reactor leapfrogs current nuclear fusion tech.
That sounds promising.
It sure does, right? Besides, I like to just say radical. What was it? A radical hydrogen boron reactor.
The word I liked the best in that sentence was leapfrog.
Quote, we are sidestepping all of the, We are sidestepping all the significant challenges that have held fusion energy back for more than half a century, says the director of an Australian company that claims its hydrogen boron fusion technology is already working 1 billion times better than expected. 1 billion's a lot of times.
Yes, it is.
That's a whole bunch of times more. HB11 Energy is a spin-out company that originated at the University of New South Wales, and it announced today a swag of patents through Japan, China, and the USA, protecting its unique approach to fusion energy generation. Well, it seems like they're for real.
Mm-hmm.
Fusion, of course, is the long-awaited, clean, safe, theoretical solution to humanity's energy needs. It's how the sun itself makes the vast amounts of energy that have powered life on our planet up until now, where nuclear fission, the splitting of atoms to release energy, has proven incredibly powerful, but insanely destructive when things go wrong. Well, that's not entirely true. Not anymore.
Yeah. That's
not
why,
with the newer generation. Even fission reactors are way safer.
Yeah, and we've talked about that. That's why I thought this would be a good article, because it sounded like they were saying it was ahead of that stuff even.
Well, fusion absolutely would be, as the next step up on like sort of the nuclear scale, I think would be the right way to go. However, it may be a panacea. It may be something that ultimately becomes unattainable. And my opinion is because of that, we shouldn't be trashing fission reactors, especially the new ones like the thorium salts reactors, because they don't blow up and have the meltdown issues that that you and I grew up associated. 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, all that shit, Fukushima. The new generation reactors don't do that anymore. They're different.
You know what the highest step we found in the universe is on the whole conversion of matter to energy?
I don't think it's high.
It's accretion.
Oh, okay, yeah. Of course that would be. Yeah, I thought you meant like.
Well, you know, he's talking about fusion and then fission, and you said steps and stuff, and it just made me think.
So accretion would be the highest layer.
That you could go,
That's the destruction of matter into information, right?
Well, accretion disks are what are found around singularities.
Right.
So, essentially, yes.
So that's really ripping shit apart.
Yeah, like efficiently.
Fusion promises reliable, safe, low-cost green energy generation with no chance of a radioactive meltdown. It's just always been 20 years away from being 20 years away.
That's true.
That's true. A number of multi-billion-dollar projects are pushing forward slowly. From the Max Planck Institute insanely complex Wendelstein ZX Stellarator.
7X.
7X.
I don't know if that makes any difference.
No, hey, it's there's a big difference between a Z and a 7.
The 7X.
To the 35-nation ITER tokamak project, which I think has got a real good shot.
Yeah.
And most rely on deuterium tritium thermonuclear fusion approach that requires the creation of ludicrously hot temperatures, much hotter than the surface of the sun, at up to 15 million degrees Celsius or 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, does it matter?
Yeah, if you're not getting enough energy from the heat.
This is where the HB11's tech takes a sharp left turn. Take a left turn at Albuquerque. The result of decades of research by Emeritus Professor Heinrich Hora. When he wasn't doing that, I shouldn't do that.
Heinrich Hora.
He's like, this sounds like a guy that should be shooting rockets at like Great Britain from occupied Germany. Anyway, I went there. HB11's approach to fusion does away with rare radioactive and difficult fuels like tritium altogether as well as those incredibly high temperatures. Instead, it uses plentiful hydrogen and boron B11, employing the precise application of some very special lasers to start the fusion reaction. Ooh, laser
What do you mean
beams.
that's not a vitamin? I already swallowed it. No.
You're going to die.
Yeah, I don't need that B11.
You're going to grow an arm out your forehead. Here's how HB11 describes its, quote, deceptively simple approach. The design is a largely empty metal sphere with a modestly sized HB11 fuel pellet.
This is starting to sound
It's
like
held
what
in
they
the
had at
center.
Area 51 that we were talking about. Little triangle and there's a sphere,
And then anti-gravity.
Yeah. Suddenly you get energy. So maybe they were right.
Fucking who knows, right? With apertures on different sides for the two lasers. One laser establishes the magnetic containment field for the plasma, and the second laser triggers the avalanche fusion chain reaction. The alpha particles generated by the reaction would create an electrical flow that can be channeled almost directly into an existing power grid with no need for a heat exchanger or steam turbine generator.
That is what that UFO was running on, essentially.
They got the wrong fuel. What's his name there? Who's the guy that...
Bob Lazar?
Bob Lazar.
Is it bad that I know Bob Lazar?
It was
Nobody
Bob
looks
Lazar.
like all those other people.
Bob was right.
He was. He
Bob was right, man. We got to call Bob
We
and
need
apologize.
a T-shirt that says Lazar was right.
Lazar and the Lasars. Lasers. Anyway, I'm
Lazar was right.
Lazar was right.
I'm going to get that T-shirt.
Tic Tac UFOs. HB11's managing director, Dr. Warren McKenzie, clarifies over the phone, quote, a lot of fusion experiments are using the lasers to heat things up to crazy temperatures. We are not.
We're not doing that.
We're not doing that. We're using the lasers to massively accelerate the hydrogen through the boron sample using nonlinear force. Whatever the fuck that means. I guess.
Yeah.
You could say that we're
so
using
vertical force of nonlinear. Wait. Linear would be
nonlinear. Linear would be straight. Nonlinear would be curved somehow. I'm just saying. So you could say we're using the hydrogen as a dart and hoping to hit a boron.
You could say that.
Wow. If we hit one, we can start a fusion reaction. That's the essence of it. You've got a scientific appreciation of temperature. It's essentially the speed of atoms moving around. Creating fusion using temperature is essentially randomly moving atoms around and hoping they'll hit one another. Our approach is much more precise. The hydrogen-boron fusion creates a couple of helium atoms, he continues. They're naked heliums. Aw, get them some clothes, man.
Yeah.
They don't have electrons, so they have a positive charge. We just have to collect that charge. Essentially, the lack of electrons is a product of the reaction, and it directly creates the current. Well, but does it create more energy than the lasers require?
I hope
the
so.
process requires? The lasers themselves rely upon cutting-edge chirped pulse amplification. Chirped pulse amplification technology, the development of which won its inventors the 2018 Nobel Prize in Physics. Okay. Much smaller and simpler than any of the high-temperature fusion generators, HB11 says its generators would be compact, clean, and safe enough to build in urban environments. There's no nuclear waste involved, no superheated steam, and no chance of a meltdown. That's the same with third and fourth gen fusion. There's no, fission. There's no high-pressure stage, so they don't explode. Quote, this is brand new. Professor Hora tells us the 10 petawatt power laser pulses. That's a lot. A petawatt?
A what?
That's above a gigawatt or a terawatt. It's been shown that you can create fusion conditions without hundreds of millions of degrees. This is a completely new knowledge. I've been working on how to accomplish this for more than 40 years. It's a unique result. Now we have to convince the fusion people it works better than the present day 100 million degree thermal equilibrium generators. We have something new at hand to make a drastic change in the whole situation. A substitute for carbon as our energy source, a radical new situation, and a new hope for energy and the climate.
They'll be going to those other guys and saying, put that 1980s shit down.
Well, it makes you wonder, right? I mean, I keep saying this. If we just could make it 20 more years, folks, before we all kill each other or
Die from the
die
virus.
off or what the fuck ever, things could get really, really good. Like really good.
And then when you asked me earlier if I thought anything was changing or ending, it made me think of like, are you asking me if I think that this is the apocalypse, which I realized you weren't at a minute, but the one thing that would make me think that this was the apocalypse was that if it happened right before the brink of all these technological wonders that we're about to achieve.
Wah, wah, wah. Yeah, none for you, fuckheads. You couldn't wait a minute longer.
Couldn't wear that mask at Kroger's, you fucker.
Yeah, you had to kill everyone. We're up to an hour here, man.
I know. You
a
can
good
tell
show,
we
huh?
was jonesing, right?
Yeah, it was a good show. I
Yeah.
had a lot of fun yapping with you there. That was especially about the Göbekli Tepe stuff.
Oh, I wanted to talk about that. I want to talk about that hibernation thing next time.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely pull those back up. I'm going to be, I don't know that we'll have a new show next week. We'll have to wait and see if we do. It'll probably be somewhere in that 4th of July weekend.
Did you sell out? Or are you working?
Oh, I'm constantly working it. Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of a big-ass job. It's going really well.
That's good.
It's been a lot of fun. Kind of finally getting out to do something, but, you know, I wear this thing now at work 8 to 10 hours a day. I've just kind of gotten used to it. So we've decided to add these because of that, though. Man, might as well.
That's really why I didn't want to smoke my vape, because I really liked the mask.
You do?
I do.
Well, I like
like
the
it.
glasses, too. Do you feel kinky? Is that what
No,
it
I
is?
feel like
Feel empowered?
like I'm getting ready to get into a pod racer.
A pod racer? Right. Yeah.
You feel like, or like an extra bad guy in Mob Squad, or
I was thinking we were sort of joining, Cobra.
Yeah, could be
like
Cobra, yeah.
Cobra or something like that.
or something from what was that DC movie that had all the weird people in it and baseball bats and jokers and naked lady kind of.
Oh, Suicide Squad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like an extra in Suicide, like a henchman to one of the bad guys.
Well, we could be like in a Mad Max post-apocalyptic
Yep.
movie too, right?
Yep. Yeah. Bait.
I think we should finish up there, man.
Yes.
We'll get this put together. Okay, thanks for listening, everybody. Check us out, www.noshitcast.com. That's KNOWSHITCAST.com. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Leave us a message. If we like it, we may talk about it here on the air. And, And thanks for listening, everyone.
Hey,
what?
Weird guys out there. I don't really know if you're weird or not, but but I know that you comment, and still the guy commenting on 107, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of a funny exchange. Hopefully he's still listening. And he said, can we agree that you cut off, what's his name?
From episode 107?
Yeah.
That'd be Mr. Neil Thompson.
Neil, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I forgot that right now.
Okay.
But can we agree that you cut him off at every opportunity? And I'm like, no, that would be silly, right? And he's like, no, it's demonstratable. And I thought about it, right? I thought about what this guy's saying. And maybe he's right to some degree, because what I was trying to do was not let him wander and trying to construct him into answering certain questions. So maybe I did cut him off more than I should have, or a lot even. But I just couldn't let him have his free wandering of his mind about scientific facts when they're there for everybody to see. It seemed a bit ridiculous. And it offended my delicate sensibilities. However,
You have delicate sensibilities.
apparently in that realm, I do. I'm generally a nice guy. I swear to gosh. But maybe you could absolutely say that I didn't let him speak his mind, that I didn't let him have a chance to wander and say his side of things, and maybe they're right. Maybe we should talk to him again, and I should shut the hell up and let him say what he wants to say someday, maybe, and not be that way, because I do like Neil, and I would like to be his friend, and I thought he was a nice guy.
Is that a formal invite that you're putting out there?
Well, yeah,
it is.
It is, but I mean, understand, I'm saying that I'm just not going to be a dick and cut him off and stuff, right? So I'm not saying it's a second debate or anything, because obviously in that format, I'm going to be more aggressive and less forgiving, right?
Understood.
But given that I've already done that, maybe I should let the man say what he needs to say. Maybe he had points that he would have gotten around to. And it wasn't like we didn't find some common ground,
Right.
occasionally in that. But I guess what I want people to know is that I don't hate Neil.
Yeah.
And, maybe I was aggressive and a bit dickheadish and stuff, and I apologize for that.
Yeah.
I think it's a show still worth listening to. But also they had speculated that it came from ego and not wanting to be told that I was wrong, and that is definitely not where that comes from. These are not my facts; they're science facts.
Right.
It's not something. If you say that this is not real, I can defend science, but they're not my facts. I mean, it's not my ego you're bruising.
There's no ego. It's
Yeah,
like-
yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous to let somebody talk about fantastic things that don't exist in the face of common knowledge that does, but it's not my common knowledge. I might be defending it, but it's not mine, and I don't feel like the ego was involved. But it probably seemed that way because I defended it so mean and so
Vehemently, yeah.
And
Yeah.
that could have been and then maybe that was the mistake, right?
Yeah.
But it all started with me thinking that he had a degree and that I could ask him questions, and it started off like that. We just got off on the wrong foot, I think, and certainly I don't know how you feel about having somebody on the show who is a bit diametrically opposed to what the show represents. But I swear if you have him back on, I'll show up and I won't be mean or anything or interrupt him.
Right.
And let him have his full say in any capacity that he would like.
Okay.
Because I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I do. I feel bad about it.
Well, tell Neil.
I've told Neil. I've
Okay.
told him on the show before a couple of times
Yeah.
or so, and I've tried to be friends with him on Facebook when he hasn't accepted my friendship.
Yet.
Yeah, but I don't blame him. I mean, I can't say there's a reason why he would need to do that.
I wonder why.
I get it, man. But yeah, for what it's worth, I do apologize for being that way, and would be glad to give the man his say since I took that away. So
All right. Well, we'll see what he says.
yeah.
Let's see if he hears this.
Well, you can direct him to it
Yeah.
if you want.
I'll shoot him a message or something. We still talk a lot.
Yeah,
We're
I just
friends.
hope he'll be my friend regardless of whatever he decides to
Yeah.
do with this show or not.
All right, I guess we'll wrap up there then.
Yes.
Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone. We will catch you all next time. Bicycles. Yeah, that'll be cool, man.